There is one issue that we at the Australian Jewish Association have been dealing with since our launch in 2017, and which has not abated since, and that is the unrelenting campaign by our existing major communal organisations to cancel us. They will try to do this at every opportunity. They will approach venues and encourage them to cancel an event organised with the AJA. And they will approach our guests and suggest that they do not appear at our functions or on our Zoom events. We know this because the people we are working with at the time tell us. And these same people will also say how shocked they are at these approaches, but also how they emphatically rejected these unwanted advances. So who is doing all this? I'm not going to name names here, but at the end of this editorial, I will indicate how you can see some of the facts for yourself. But if there is one piece of, quote, evidence that is repeatedly used to justify cancelling the AJA, it is our willingness to communicate with some politicians, and one politician in particular, Pauline Hanson. Over and over again, some of our community leaders will argue that we are encouraging people to support Pauline Hanson's One Nation party. No, we're not. We don't advocate supporting any particular party. But as our followers generally hold politically conservative views, we are obviously going to have more to do with right-of-centre parties. So we have had dealings with One Nation, the Liberal Democrats, United Australia Party, Family First and others. And we don't avoid the political left. Labor politicians occasionally speak with us, and we have had Labor guests at our events. But people from the Greens rarely answer our invitations, or if they do, refuse to accept. So because our interest is Israel advocacy, we find that the right-of-centre crossbench generally take a friendlier view of Israel than those politicians on the left, be they the Greens or those members in the left faction of Labor. Presumably One Nation is always quoted because it is the most prominent of the minor parties. But just like all political parties, it contains people with a range of political beliefs. We support the policies and not necessarily the people. And there are some like Sarah Game from One Nation in South Australia who most people would have trouble distinguishing from anyone in the Liberal Party. Our philosophy is very simple. If they support Israel in a way that we do, we will work with them. So where did this obsession with Pauline Hanson come from? It's hard to say, but it might have been way back in 2015 when Michael Bird and I were doing Nothing Left, our former radio program on AJA, the Jewish community radio station based in Melbourne. Hanson had made some positive comments about Israel, so we invited her for an interview to discuss them, and she accepted. The interview lasted no longer than 15 minutes, but ever since then, Michael and I were pilloried for having had her on the show. And this fixation has continued with the AJA. Other pieces of evidence used against the AJA come from articles in the hard left online magazine Plus 61J, which always describes the AJA as far right. These articles are easily found online, and you are welcome to judge for yourself whether we are the far right-wing extremists that our detractors like to paint us as. But as I alluded to earlier, if you want to watch an in-depth analysis of the cancel culture within our community, at the end of this editorial I will put up a link to the video recording of a session that I presented at Limud Oz this year. Michael was going to join me on the day, but had to withdraw at the last minute due to an accident he had at home. This video recording goes for about an hour, but it does outline the background to the AJA and the cancel culture that has followed us since the beginning. And this is just part of it. There is lots more. It's rather unpleasant stuff, but you need to know exactly what some of our communal organisations are doing behind the scenes. I assure you, you won't ever look at them the same way again. This is Alan Freedman from the Australian Jewish Association.